Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another whiskey review and a special holiday whiskey review. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. I know this is coming out right before the holiday, and that was thus the theme of today's review and the whiskey of focus. What I'm going to be talking about today is the new Riff Winter Whiskey. So, if you haven't heard of this before, this is an annual release that comes out every year at the distillery at New Riff, and we're going to come in just a moment with like all the stats and the price and everything about this thing and its unique mash bill. But one thing I'll say up front on this is a whiskey that I bought with the initial release, which I liked, but I wasn't head over heels about. So each year it's come out, I haven't like double dipped again. This year I got a chance to get it again, and the comparison of where it was just a couple years ago is so interesting to me, and we'll dive more into that too. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. I actually pulled out the tulip here, or the onion bulb, whatever you want to call that type of glass. When I usually find these online, I get that question all the time. Onion bulb is the key words that makes this pop in Google, and you can find it if you're curious. But the reason that I grabbed this one, and you'll see this in just a moment, the nose on this thing is actually my favorite part of the whiskey. I haven't had it yet in the onion bulb, which kind of makes the nose a little different. It can pronounce some flavors, make it more concentrated. I'm just curious about what's going to happen when we go through today's tasting here. I always try something new, even if I'm doing it live with you. So for today's review, we are talking about the new Riff Winter Whiskey here. Let me pull up these stats. So this is an annual release. So we are specifically talking about the 2024 bottling of this. The price of this at the distillery is $54.99. We're going to come back to prices and New Riff later on in this video when we reflect on New Riff in 2024. But New Riff is fantastic at keeping their special releases at a manageable price most of the time. And the only time that they ever dabble above a non-manageable price or a more escalated price is like when they're doing some charity thing too. But we'll get back to that. Proof on this one is 100. And it is age stated on the back to be aged at least 4 years. So what the at least means, I don't know what the upper end of the age of the whiskeys in this blend could be, but it says 4 years. Oh, the other unique thing before I put this bottle down, the mash bill on this thing, 65% corn, 20% malted oats, 7% pale ale malt, 5% steel cut raw oats, 3% chocolate malt. You know, I should make a slide that has the mash bill on these things. But this is a crazy, crazy mash bill. And that oats aspect of it is going to come back in this overall flavor profile. Now, we're going to go through a tasting here. I'm going to try something new and actually just put all my thumbs up here. But in general, what you're going to hear me describe and articulate is the fact that I really do like the nose on this, as I already hinted at. 2 thumbs up on the nose. I gave 1 thumbs up on the palate and 1 thumbs up on the finish. So I'm going to spend just the next 2 minutes here going through why I gave those different thumbs up on the side of the screen. So cheers, everybody. Let's get into the nose first. Ooh, man. Onion bulb glass does not disappoint. Now, one thing that sticks out to me on this in particular, and this probably comes from New Riff's roots, where a lot of the master distillers and the people that work at New Riff actually came from more of a beer background. Man, do I get a whole lot of beer influence on this. I've actually said that a few times this year, which makes me wonder if that is just a trend going on with some of these new distilleries and they're leaning into their roots and experimenting with these different malts and things. Within those lines, then, one thing that sticks out to me, and thus it fits its name of the winter whiskey, is the fact that it does remind me a lot of Great Lakes Christmas Ale in the sense that it has those Christmas spices, essentially a combination of nutmeg, cinnamon, brown sugar, baking spices. Those type of things do emerge throughout this experience, even a little bit of like hot cocoa powder. The other thing I think about throughout this too, and I think that's coming from maybe the oat aspect and the malt, but the combination of chocolate and the oats and the baking spices makes me think of like the tin of cookies that my mom used to make when I was a kid, and just opening up that tin of cookies that had like a variety of cookies in it, maybe even like some Buckeyes and, all different things in there. That's what it reminds me of. That's the memory that comes in my head when I'm sniffing this thing. So, two thumbs up on a nose that can remind you of some memories. Let's get into the taste. Now, up front, I would be curious to try this thing at cast strength. At 100, it does feel a little thin from a mouthfeel perspective. The initial flavors too aren't quite blasting, though they do catch up by mid palate. But initially, just thinking about the malt, the oats, and that hot cocoa powder. So that's essentially what you get up front. But then when it gets into mid palate, I mean, there is a little bit of oak here, which makes me wonder if that at least 4 years actually means there's 5, 6, maybe even 7 year casts in this blend, depending on what they put aside for future releases. The chocolate definitely emerges again. That's probably the most predominant note of this, so Darrell's gonna love it. And then the baking spices and those Christmas spices. That is the main event. It's the chocolate and the Christmas spices. There's also a bit of vanilla cream, maybe a whipped cream, almost like a Cool Whip, even. And the chocolate on it does get more three-dimensional, almost like a chocolate mousse rather than just a chocolate powder like I was describing before. So a whole lot of desserts still going on. Let's get into the finish. Mm. We'll see how the finish does here as I'm talking, but I call the finish medium. Once again, I'd love to try this at cast strength. Maybe that could be a high note someday, New Riff. A cast strength winter whiskey, I'd be in for that. It's very tasty. Main notes again are everything that I've been saying. It's chocolate, it's that tin of cookies, the chocolate powder. Definitely some of those cookies are, oat based. Uh, you know, and there's not a whole lot of fruits going on throughout this as I kind of think about it, but it's generally just chocolate leaning, getting those Christmas spices now. So it's consistent through and through. I mean, it is what it is. There aren't a whole lot of transitions, I would say, throughout the experience here. So that describes then why I gave the nose two thumbs up, favorite part of the experience. Rest of it, I'm a fan of. All got pretty high marks from me. So, on that note, going into the scores, here at the channel, we do have a lot of metrics behind the scenes, but we can break it down into a three-tier scoring system where we rate flavor, experience, and value. On flavor, essentially gave it all eights. Everything's just really good. There's not necessarily a knockout punch. Maybe that's the proof. Love to see the cast strength. I'm going to keep poking at that. The experience, though, it is unique and it's got that depth, particularly on the nose. So gave that an 84 with the experience, and then with the value, all of the points. Come on, $55 for something unique, experimental, and holiday driven. Love it. So that comes to a final score of an 84 out of 100. Just to kind of summarize what I love about it, it's fun and it's unique. Those are going to be the selling points of this thing. You got to be in for a fun, unique ride. And it also continues New Riff's hot streak. So I am going to end this video here just on a little bit of reflection with New Riff. No New Riff bottles made my top 10 or top 20 this year. But with that said, well, maybe they're in the top 20. I'll have to go back and look at that. But with that said, I've been raving about New Riff all year, and this is why. So what I'm drinking right here, I rate it as an 84. And these are the other reviews of New Riff I've done across the year, all of which have rated between an 80 and an 85. And the prices on these, except for the headliner, have been really, really good, ranging between $50 to $80 at most. So I really do appreciate the value that New Riff brings to the whiskey community. When it comes to value, they are one of my top brands that come to mind, almost like right there next to Obtanium in some ways. The only one that's sticks out there is the headliner. I gave the headliner an 83 at the time. I'll be honest, I've been revisiting that bottle and it bats a little higher as I've gotten more used to it. I bet it gets up to that 85 though. I don't think I'd put it higher than that, but that one did cost $250. Was a lottery bottle. It's got up to like 10-year New Riff in it in that blend, and a lot of that money went to charity. So I'll forgive them on that one and keep their reputation as a great, great partner when it comes to giving us good value with this great whiskey. So let me know what you think in the comments of this winter whiskey. If you've gotten to try it, what you think, and if this might inspire you to look for it next year. Also, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. And I really, really hope you spend some good time with your families. Cheers, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.